Hello, welcome to another tutorial on Autodesk PLM 360. This time we're going to take a look at the security model within PLM. We're going to take a look at users, groups, roles, and permissions all within PLM 360, and ultimately that leads up to how do we use PLM 360, how do we ensure that the right people have the right access at the right time. The security model in PLM 360 is broken down as such. We have access to the site, also known as the tenant. So we can grant people access to get into the site, but once they're in, we can dictate which workspaces they have access to. So we have the ability to cloak workspaces, make them read-only for certain populations of users. Then once inside of a workspace, we can break it down even further and turn on and turn off tabs and even have read and write permissions within the tabs. Within some of the tabs, like the item details, we can have section level access, which would mean turning off or making read-only certain sections. And then down at the most granular, we actually have a record by record level access that we can enable depending on the circumstances. Okay, let's talk about some terminology. So you're going to hear a lot of these terms, and I thought I'd put this slide up just to get over the semantics of it. So first, we have users. A user in the system is somebody who has an Autodesk ID, and they are an individual. It's meant to be a person in the system, and there are two license types that we'll cover here. The first is a professional and a participant, and we'll have a breakdown of this a little bit later on. This is also available up on our website, plm360.com, that explains the matrix of what the professional can do versus the participant. At a high level, professional can be anything from an administrator to an end user that needs to write and read, create records. Participant is a consumer only, no writability, but they can participate in workflow. Moving on, groups. A group is a collection of users, and actually a group is your gateway into access a role, which gets you into what you can do inside of a workspace. All users must be part of a group inside of PLM. A user all by themselves without a group can't do much inside of PLM. You need to be part of a group, even if it's a group of one. Now, a role is something that a group has. A group has multiple roles. Role is something that's also tethered to one given workspace, and that dictates what you can do within that workspace. So we'll take a look at that a little bit later on. And then finally, we have the permission. The permission is the individual action that you can do within a workspace. And when we take a look at roles, you'll see some of the basics: add, delete, edit, and view. And then there are some special permissions. There are ones that are just for administrators or just for unique circumstances within PLM 360. Let's take a little bit different look at users, groups, roles, and permissions. In this graphic, what you're seeing is if you're a user, in order for you as a user to get to a workspace to do something, you need to be part of a group. And as mentioned, it could even be a group of one, that's okay, but a user must be part of a group. That group has a role, and the role inside of it has permissions, things you can do, and by definition, things you can't do. And ultimately, that is the key to the workspace. So user must be part of a group, has a role, has permissions, and that's your access and what you're allowed to do inside of a given workspace. Okay, one more slide. So accessing tabs, so taking it down another level. Every workspace has the possibility to have the following tabs on, and you'll see them down here: action notifications and attachments and bill of materials and grid and etc. Each one of these tabs has its own powers, has its own roles, and has its own gifts within a given workspace. So things like the grid tab will act very different than the milestones tab, which will do different things than the sourcing tab. We'll take a look at this when we talk about tab theory, but what I want you to take away from this is, in order to see these tabs, you must be allowed to see the tab, and that's something that's done with a permission inside of the role.